So the UAS ecosystem is facing quite a few challenges today, but maybe we should start with kind of like looking at what people use drones for. I mean, if you look out there now in the ecosystem, you'll see there's quite a few use cases that drones are actually being applied to. I mean, one of the popular ones you'll hear a lot about is the last mile package delivery. You also see them being used for infrastructure inspection, and some of them that you'll hear about are mobile operators using them for cell tower inspection, or people using them to go and inspect bridges over rivers, addressing those particular areas where if an individual would find it quite challenging to get to. Traditionally, you need somebody that needs to keep an eye on it, and they have to have visual line of sight. They do. So, I mean, you can only really operate it maybe over 1 or 2 miles. So, even if you're going up into those challenging terrains, you still have to have somebody that kind of goes up there, and then at the last moment they can use the drone to do the final part. If, we could finally solve the beyond visual line of sight problem, we could remove some of those problems and actually, increase the ecosystem and make those use cases a lot more applicable to the market. MITRE put together a organisation called MITRE Engenuity, and MITRE Engenuity looks at working with the private sector on doing things for public good in the US. And one of the areas that MITRE Engenuity looked at was looking at how 5G could be used to accelerate particular ecosystems. And within MITRE Engenuity there was a project called the MITRE Engenuity Open Generation 5G Consortium, and basically the job of that consortium is to look at particular verticals that we have within the US, and then look at how we can use 5G to accelerate those verticals. Basically, we brought in a lot of different players from across the whole ecosystem. So, I mean, no one company alone can address the problems of, that need to be challenged, like the BV loss, which is beyond visual line of sight. So if you have a look at our membership, we've got traditional infrastructure players in there, the likes of Ericsson and Nokia. We've got MNOs, we have Verizon. But, just bringing in the traditional 5G players is not enough. We also need to take into account, what the users of the actual system need. So in the case of, the drone ecosystem, the people will actually take the drones out there and fly them because, they face a lot of different practical challenges they do, such as, the quality of the radio link that they need to use, can they, if they fly it beyond visual line of sight, what are some of the other challenges that they need to address, which is another one is detect and avoid. I mean, if you want to get approval for BV loss, which is beyond visual line of sight, you need to also mitigate drones hitting each other, because hopefully this ecosystem will become very popular, and instead of kind of having 1 or 2 drones flying around, we may have hundreds of them, particularly flying around. Just take a typical a residential type of area, and you have a package delivery that's very successful. You can imagine drones just flying all over the place, dropping those packages off. So you need to make sure that you optimally use the airspace correctly, and detect and avoid is key to doing that. So another thing that the Open Generation Consortium is doing is that we actually work on real life use cases. We do. So we take these particular use cases and then we actually perform experiments on those use cases. And we're actually setting up a number of test beds in the US. One of them is in upstate New York, and another one is in Virginia at Virginia Tech, Kenton Farm. So we're presenting white papers to these standards organizations, so typically, somebody like 3GPP, and then those standards organizations will use that input to help drive or scope their standards. We might identify particular issues that are with the standards, something that's missing, something that might be over specified and might need profiling, or there's some particular errors in the standard and these errors need to be fixed. One of the benefits of standards is, it brings predictability and interoperability to the devices that are in the ecosystem. And usually standards have been kind of like well validated as well. So it brings some confidence to the regulators and the policy makers in that, 5G can actually provide the necessary functionality to allow BV loss operations to take place.